Hello, my name is Katie Gout, and I'm going to be going over the Debs versus United States case, or Eugene Debs. So, just going over the case involved Eugene Debs versus the United States government. In 1918, Eugene Debs was a very prominent socialist. He exercised his views completely, and one time he was giving a speech in Canton, Ohio, about the U.S. involvement in the World War One and how he had a distaste for the U.S. involvement in World War One and would have preferred that the U.S. gone over a draft, preferably than going to war. So Debs was then arrested and charged under the Espionage Act of 1917, because this happened in 1918, so this act was enacted the year before, which the Espionage Act of 1917 made it a crime to obstruct military recruitment and the insubordination within the armed forces. So, for the verdict of Debs versus United States government was completely unanimous. On his socialized ideals, showing freedom of speech isn't actually a right. Even if he was focused in on his socialist ideas, the court ruled that he had intent and probable cause to impact the U.S. involvement in military act. So, for the bigger picture, after the case, tension rose completely, increased in the national and civil liberties. This caused the government to crack down and be extremely strict. Anyone who detested the U.S. involvement was arrested. Anyone who made a comment about the U.S. involvement was arrested. Anybody who said or felt like, hey, we probably should have gone for the draft, you probably guessed, arrested. Now, for the relevance to now, because this is in the past, this is history, this is 1918, 1970, it's really, really in the past. So why does it matter now? The Debs versus United States government shows us how freedom of speech can be overruled by the government at any time. Anytime. This is extremely scary because these rules and laws and acts being put in place to protect U.S. citizens are not being followed and they're not protected. This then sparked the movement and the formation of the ACLU, also known as the American Civil Liberties Union. They work to defend and protect the rights of U.S. citizens, since in this case, they were completely not. Now, for my secondary source, it was an article going about how Debs actually prevailed even though he was arrested and charged technically as a felon and became president for his socialist views. He had over 1 million votes voting for him to become president, which is insane. But I think what happened is the U.S. citizens saw the impact of the war and they were like, wait, Debs is actually right. Maybe we should have gone for the draft and maybe we should have came together with resources and came together with a unanimous decision to that the US can become stronger and come out on top, because that's everything that we're trying to do. This case completely raises questions about, the freedom of speech versus the government, because the government has too much power. And now we may need to bring down the power. Because even we still have martial law, which I believe, if I'm correct, if it ever gets put in place, they have full control over everything. So, yes, this case is a really, really good example and is really extremely important to now, because even now we see day-to-day things are not, I would not say, follows correctly of the Constitution. It's not constitutional. But I'm not going to go into that too much. But yes, in this case, it's a prime example of the First Amendment right being completely disregarded, completely being overlooked. And even in the case, they said the freedom of speech should not be used in this way. So how are you able to dictate freedom of speech? Because it's supposed to be freedom of speech. So I really like this case, and I think it's really important to now. And these are my sources, including the textbook. And chapters 18 through 28 goes over Debs and more of his socialist forms, like even the railroad union. And yeah, that's it.